I think when people look for a lawyer, or maybe not even just a lawyer, but a doctor or someone in that position where they need to hire someone to help them with something that's intense or serious, I've always maintained that people aren't terribly impressed with when you lead by saying, oh, I got this verdict or I got that settlement. And I'm not saying you shouldn't advertise that. You should. People should know, like on your website and whatever, that you get results. And this kind of tracks, I think, with what you're saying is like nobody can be you. I think people want someone who they trust, who appears to be sincere and authentic, and someone that they could sit down with and imagine themselves sitting across from and sharing really personal or sensitive stuff. That brings somebody in, I think.
I agree completely. It's about empathy and human connection, because everybody can say they get settlements and everybody went to law school and everybody's the best lawyer in Philadelphia this year. Like, but did I connect with you? Do I feel safe with you protecting my family? And unfortunately, in a lot of law and a lot of PI law, I think too many firms kind of almost made it a commodity, like it's an investment. But we forget that at the end of that investment is a human being.
Hey there, everyone. I'm Tom Bosworth, and this is the City of Brotherly Law. Welcome to Philly's Legal Pulse, where we chat with some of the city's and the country's best attorneys about what's really going on in our courts and our communities. Let's dive in and see what's brewing in the City of Brotherly Law. Hey, Paul.
How are you, sir?
Good. How are you?
I am always good.
We met, I think, 60 seconds ago, so this is our first time actually talking, other than what we said offline, which we can't repeat here. Just kidding.
No, but I felt the deep connection in those 60 seconds, so I think we're going to be good to go.
We'll talk about a bunch of stuff, but I know you have Ring Boost. So can you just tell us what Ring Boost is and what you do?
Yeah, Ring Boost, very unique concept. We started out in the phone number business, but it's really not about phone numbers. It's about human connection through voice. So we help businesses of every type, lawyers, doctors, healthcare, it doesn't matter, real estate, find memorable numbers to use in their marketing to make it easier for people to connect with them. That's toll-free, local, just easier numbers like 1-800-BROTHERLY or 215-222-HURT. Just ways to, so that's our business. People come and, our theory was you select your name, your brand, your logo, your tagline, your domain, but then most businesses just let the phone company hand them a random set of 7 digits and thought that was crazy. So that's what ringboost.com does. We help people provide better phone numbers to get better response and more voice interaction.
How do you buy a certain number like that? Like, if you want a catchy number, is there some like overlord that owns all these?
I'm one of them. We're sort of the mafia. No, I'm kidding. You can go to the phone companies. So phone companies look at phone numbers as just code. It's just random digits. They don't care. It's just a set of digits that enter a code. To myself and some others, we said, wait a minute. 2255 is call. 4878 is hurt. 222. That's memorable. To the phone companies, they don't reckon. They're just a set of digits. So companies like ours will help people find those right numbers, those better digits that tie into their name, their brand, are easy to spell. And that's, there's algorithms, there's ways to kind of look through these tens of millions of numbers that are out there and say, wait a minute, this one spells brotherly or whatever it might be. So that's, it shouldn't, as I said before, why would you leave that the chance? In the legal space, I've worked with a lot of lawyers. Most of the lawyers I talked to, they took paint swatches to decide what color to paint their office. And then they just let the phone company go, here you go. Here's the next set of digits off the pile. That doesn't make sense to me, because I believe that in this increasing digital age of AI and text and all this other stuff, voice becomes more important, not less, because it's the one thing that human connection, it can't replace our relationship. Those first 60 seconds that we had joking around, you can't replace that in text or with a bot. So I believe in the power of human connection through voice, and that's really what we're about.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I like am fascinated by like legal marketing and what works and what doesn't, and just as a lawyer, but also just as a person. And I'm always like thinking about it, and billboards are fascinating to me because they're like I'm just thinking about what you just said. They're like the traditional method of advertising for a lawyer, and I'm not knocking it, but I agree with you that especially these days when everything's so accessible on social media, on on your screen, you can pull up a lawyer or pull up someone on a video. I don't know. Do you think that that makes billboards not obsolete because they'll always be here, and
Right.
in some ways they're here more than ever. But yeah, I guess that the voice, the visual of the person that you're looking to hire, maybe. I mean,
No,
do you
I,
like,
I believe in that stuff because now I don't necessarily believe in it as a direct response tool. Meaning, I drive the same highway every day and I see that billboard. It might be 30 years. I might not be in an accident, but that's just branding. That's like Nike has billboards just to keep that logo. So when there is that emergency in the legal space, and someone might say, "Hey, call Tom." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I've seen that guy around." So I don't think we could just all take everything down and just hide all on the web. First of all, if
right?
you're going to play that game and just wait on the web, well, now you're competing with guys who could absolutely outspend you, outrank you, out podcast listener you. So I believe very much so in doing all the podcasts, the SEO, the TikTok, the Instagram. You got to try it all, but also the traditional, just being out in our communities, being out, and doesn't necessarily mean a billboard, being out local, because you have to market and own a client before the point of impact, before they get an accident. If you're waiting to hit them up after they've been in an accident, uh, that's a little late. I want to own you, so it doesn't matter if my accident's in 3 years from now. I know I'm calling you. I'm calling Tom. Like, it doesn't matter because I've been not only marketed to, but I've seen you. I know who you are. I've gotten your personality. I'm like, that's the guy that if I ever, goes down, I'm calling.
Yeah,
So, but a lot of the marketers, or not, I say it's the marketers, but it's also the lawyers. You ever see when you take a laser pointer and you put on the floor with a cat and they just run after it? Um, the marketers have to make money too. So they keep, I remember the days. Here's what I love about what I do. And I'm not saying it's the end all be all, but I've said the same thing for 20 years. I have memorable phone numbers. It helps get better response to make it easier for people to call you. But I've gone to conferences and I've seen guys say, "Hey, man, we need MySpace. No, it's not. It's Instagram. It's Facebook. Hey, it's a website. Now we got to get content. Okay, now we got to get links. Not those links. Oh, wait a minute.
right.
Now, so you're moving around and you have to try all this stuff. You need to be in the digital sphere, but the game changes literally by the day. It's how do we work with the algorithms? Is it TikTok now? Is it this? We got to play that game, but also stick with the tried and true that we know works. Because you don't know, is TikTok going to be the next one, or is it going to be LinkedIn, or is it going to be or is it going to be an AI? Who knows? We can't decide, and technology is going to keep doing what it does. It doesn't care what we think. But I'm also a contrarian. Like if it was me, I'd make a big joke that I would run an ad on the back of a yellow pages and mail it to everybody. Like just do something different, be out of the box while you're trying to compete in the same, with what everyone else is doing.
I don't know why you just made me think of this, and I don't even think this is like good for me to share. It doesn't even make me look cool or anything. But I remember I was at a happy hour at another law firm, and like someone was like talking to me, and they're like, "Yeah, like nice. Do you have a business card?" And I was like, "No." And it wasn't like intentionally memorable. I just really like forgot to make them. But then they were like, the person's response was, "Oh, that's like so cool. Like you don't even have a business." And I think that they probably remember. And then they referred me a case that's a
So
good
that should
case. But I'm not like bragging. I didn't do anything. I just thought it was funny that because it was out of the ordinary, it was memorable to her.
so maybe
And I
that should
wasn't like,
be your thing. Maybe from
what?
now on, when anybody asks you for a business card, you should just immediately go no,
Oh, I've
because it
started
worked.
doing it. Yeah, no, I go, I don't have those. And everyone's like, "Oh my God." I'm
Piece
like,
of
"But
crap.
I'll give you my email." No. Um,
Yeah, well, for like, it's weird because now everybody just give me your Instagram handle, give me your LinkedIn. But I think that technology is democratizing the field, right? Anyone could have a website, anyone could write content. It could all be the same content. What's the differentiator? you. No one can be you. No one can be Paul
Right.
Faust. Like, I am the differentiator while technology levels the playing field, that we could all be saying the same things and look the same. No one could be me. Like, you could try. I wouldn't try. There's a lot of work that goes into this. This is not easy. But we are the differentiator. We are different than you are a different lawyer and different person than anyone else. Everyone could say, I got $1 million. I did $70 million opening statements. Anyone could do that stuff, but they're not you. They're not you, your life set of experiences, your personality. And that's what I think we need to be consciously aware of as technology kind of keeps changing. How do we plug ourselves into it, but still be ourselves?
On that note, when I know this sounds hypocritical because I was like, I do opening statements with $70 million cases. So what I'm about to say is going to be hypocritical, maybe, but it's something I believe, which is that I think when people look for a lawyer, or maybe not even just a lawyer, but a doctor or someone in that position where they need to hire someone to help them with something that's intense or serious. I've always maintained that people aren't terribly impressed with when you lead by saying, "Oh, I got this verdict or I got that settlement," and I'm not saying you shouldn't advertise that. You should. People should know, like on your website and whatever, that you get results. But I've always believed that, and this kind of tracks, I think, with what you're saying, is like nobody can be you. I think people want someone who they trust, who they who appears to be sincere and authentic, and someone that they could sit down with and imagine themselves sitting across from and sharing really personal or sensitive stuff. That brings somebody in, I think.
I
I
agree.
mean,
I
I,
agree completely. It's
yeah,
about empathy and human connection, because everybody can say they get settlements, and everybody went to law school, and everybody's got the best lawyer of Philadelphia this year. Like, but did I connect with you? Do I feel safe
right,
with you protecting my family? And
right,
unfortunately, in a lot of law and a lot of PI law, too many, I think too many firms have kind of almost made it a commodity, like it's an investment. Oh, if I put out $100,000, my case is going to be this. But we forget that at the end of that investment is a human being that's been hurt, or their family's been hurt, and we can't forget the human element. Yes, it's a good business, and and we help these people get back on their feet the best they can from a tragic event, but there's a human being behind that. And the lawsuit and the money is only one component of helping them recover or somehow get better, but there's a human in there. And I think humans connect with humans, and I think that we can't forget that in our marketing, that people do business, all things being equal, people do business with people, and all things being unequal, people do business with people, like people they like. So
yeah. I started going viral on TikTok as a lawyer before I had really any accolade that I could point to. I mean, and
because
then I then started getting some wins, right? But I, I was working for another firm at the time. I now own my own firm, have for a couple of years, but they were shocked and they didn't understand, like, why are people flocking to this 33-year-old kid on TikTok? And I don't proclaim to have the answers, but I was always like, I just think that they trust, like people trust that I will hear them. And I became a lawyer like this because my grandmother died from medical negligence,
oh
and
my goodness.
we couldn't find a lawyer. So I'm not BSing when I say I do this because I find it's my life purpose. And I think all the greatest lawyers in this space and probably in any field I would bet money. I firmly believe that their primary motivator is not money. I think that the people that are super good at it and really at the upper level, they're not, yeah, they're making a ton of money, but that's not what's driving them. I would go to the grave believing that.
And why that's really important, what you said, is because what we're seeing in the legal space, especially in the PI and mass tort space, is uh, hundreds of millions of dollars of outside investment coming in from private equity that looks at it. It's not their life mission. It's a return.
Right.
It's another investment. And be very, very careful. Um, as a consumer is something that you select a lawyer that's a lawyer that
Yeah.
wanted to be a lawyer and not someone just had a big ad budget because some private equity firm said, here's $100 million, go build a national brand, but we need an ROI, or we need this to be our EBITDA. They don't care like you care about because your grandmother died. They care about a return on dollars out. And that's happening in our legal space right now. And it's going to explode over the next 5 years because of ABS structures. Um, there are, I would say, billions of dollars on the street looking for non-correlated assets. And then when all of a sudden they couldn't touch a legal space, and then someone said, let's open up, yeah, ABS is so anyone could own a law firm. And they're like, bing, another opportunity to push dollars out. But this is human beings. This is families destroyed. This is corporations taking advantage of people in the medical field with mass torts. We can't forget that human element about it. And I think that the lawyers who understand to tell that story about why you're a lawyer, because you couldn't find one, you can't replace that. And private equity with dollars can't replace that.
What you just said is so critically important, and I'm glad you brought it up because it's something that's happening now that's new that I think 99.9% of people don't know about. And as an attorney, I know, and you know, it used to be that in order to own a law firm, you had to be a lawyer, period. And I think what you're alluding to is this new shift where there's been a couple states. I think it's Arizona was the first, and now it's sort of this wave where, like to your saying, that rule's getting eliminated, and now we're allowing private equity, essentially corporations who aren't lawyers, who come in and buy an interest in a law firm, which to your point is extremely risky and extremely detrimental to the interests of the clients, in my opinion, because uh, private equity by definition is, they have a very simple goal: maximize profits as soon as possible, as big as possible, by any means,
Yep.
right? And when you apply those principles to a law firm, what does that mean? Or anything? And they're doing it in medicine and healthcare too, which is a massive problem because that's like people's livelihood. Is that you're cutting staff, you're limiting resources, you're driving down the expenses line on your profit sheet so you can go brag to some corporate investor about how you're getting a good return on investment. And to
Right.
your point, on the back end of this is people's lives, catastrophically injured children who are paralyzed for life, someone's spouse who's dead, who, and people have no clue that when they're calling a lawyer or reaching out that they may be, falling into the trap of one of these kind of corporate behemoths. So I don't know if that's the same phenomenon
Yes.
that you were talking about, but that's kind
100,
of, yeah.
100%. Because if they can get a 30% return on their money quick and then deploy more capital, even though they should have gotten a 2,000% return, because no, take the money. So what they're doing is they're coming in with dollars and running it like a business. And when you could do that, guess what? I only need one lawyer with a bar card, and then I could
Right.
have some AI tool write a demand letter and just churn these things. And the lawyers who do this because it's their life calling, because I am going to fight this no matter what, that's what we need. Now, I'm not saying that money is always bad, because we maybe with money we could educate more people, because look, and I've said this to a lot of lawyers, you are not just competing with the other lawyers in your market, right? You are competing with the tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who don't hire a lawyer. They just take the insurance company settlement because they think it's right. So money is okay to come in and educate people. But when you're selecting a lawyer, I want the guy who went to law school because it's his life passion, not the big money guy because a private equity gave him $100 million and said, go build a brand. That's okay with sneakers and jeans. It's not okay with
Right.
my
Exactly.
family. So
Exactly. Yeah, that's such a good. You're like preaching to the choir right now, because it's. I have the same philosophy. Am I anti money? Am I anti capitalism? Honestly, no, I'm not. But there's a time and a place for that sort of corporate corporate structure, and private equity is a very unique, particular corporate endeavor. Right? It's literally what we just talked about, dumping money in getting a quick, or I mean, I had a case, sorry, I'm switching gears, but I had a case against a huge pharmaceutical company where they were emitting this cancerous gas in the neighborhood for like decades, and it was causing all these cancer clusters of people that lived nearby had no clue they're breathing in this carcinogen for decades, right? Come to find out, there's a lawsuit filed against the company, and it was like a 3 or 4 year period between, again, none of this publicly available, you wouldn't know unless you're in the case. For 3 years they were bought out by a private equity firm, right? So what did they do in those 3 years? They literally like slashed all their safety measures, like devoted zero energy toward their emission standards, right? While they're doing this evil stuff, and jacked up the profits. And that all came into evidence, and the jury went nuts. I mean, they awarded, I wasn't the lawyer in this particular case, I was a spectator, but the jury awarded something like $300 something million for somebody who had cancer from that. But that private equity stuff, that all came into evidence. The jury heard all that. They heard about, and I think we need to educate people like you and I who are in the legal space. I think it's incumbent upon us to educate people. How else will they know? And when you have a case with an injury or a death, pretty important that you hire someone that's can walk the walk. So,
right. But often we are swayed by, because we're a consumption economy. We're swayed by marketing. We're swayed by cool jingles and ads. But look, especially when it's private equity dollars. One thing when it's your firm, private equity dollars. We don't know if they're also heavily invested in the insurance side, if they're heavily invested in the automakers. So where's the incentive?
Conflict of interest.
There's definitely going to be conflicts. Now, again, there's nothing wrong with the right money coming into a space and saying, Tom, here's more money so you can educate more people. But we just can't forget that most important piece, the two most important pieces, which are the injured person and the lawyer who's doing this because they care. And they want to fight for guys. They don't just look at it and go, oh, I get a third. And what's my return? Because some of the private equity guys might say, oh, just churn and burn. We just want to churn profit. So we have to be aware of it. And I would tell you, if you're a listener of this podcast and you do run into a legal issue, find a lawyer who's been in your community that knows people. Don't fall for the shiny object. And that doesn't mean that the lawyer who's got the big advertising is the shiny object. He might also be a lawyer that cares, but be careful. Vet the lawyer, and it's not just some brand that came in and they look good because they have big dollars. That doesn't mean they're good at what they do.
Great point. Great advice. I've done videos on that too, where I'm like, here's some questions you should ask a lawyer if you're going to hire him. Like, what's your track record? I don't know.
If you're in Philadelphia, does he know what a whiz without is, or like, or something like that?
That's what I wanted to ask you. Now that because I have you here and you're an expert in this space, and it's something I'm always thinking about, but I don't know enough about it to know. Given that like we're in this evolving global technological era, and you've been in this space for years, I feel like the old move by law firms used to be like, all right, like for most firms, all right, like I'm going to dominate my geographical area, like Philly. I'm going to like saturate Philly, and like I'm a Philly lawyer, blah, 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 blah. And now, of course, we see the other firms like the Morgan & Morgans and the large aggregate firms, of course, going national. But what do you make of all this in terms of like, do you think that we're always going to have that local pound the ground advertising stuff with lawyers, or do you think that there's a risk or possibility that we're going to phase into just this conglomerate global or national model where sort of like, bad analogy probably, but like the little mom and pop farmers got all gobbled up by Monsanto or the big agriculture?
Well, look, it's happened in everything. All the bookshops were bought up by Barnes and Nobles. All the electronic stores were bought up. Sporting goods were bought up by Dick's. The difference in all of these is we're talking about someone who was critically hurt, dead, whatever. So it's a different model. But the answer is, I think both will happen. 100%. big national brands are coming, and there's more on their way. You named one of them. We don't need to go through the list. There's ones you don't know about that we all don't know about. They are coming. They're going to market. You can't stop it. You can't stop technology. You can't stop money coming in. For me, if I'm the lawyer in the market, I'm leaning into, some are going to just get bought out and they'll roll into the big entity, which means that, some of that grassroots marketing goes away because those individual lawyers aren't doing it anymore. They're just part of the big entity. Me, I'm a lawyer that does this. Look, if you want to get rolled into a big practice and work for a big, great, that's a model. Go do it. You don't have to do 90%. All you got to do is be a lawyer. But if you're a lawyer that cares and does it and wants to have his own practice, lean into it. Be more local. Be the guy in Philly. Be the guy they see at the Philly bar, on the line for the cheesesteak, at the Phillies game, talking to people. That guy's our Philly guy. And, a lot of lawyers now, I have friends of mine that are lawyers in Florida that are opening office in Boston. Why? Because Florida changed some laws. It became harder to sue things, less business. Okay, let me go up in another market. So they can throw dollars at it, but they're not a local person. Be local. Be the guy in your community. Like, what's the ultimate win? I think it was a firm out of New York where people would dress up as the lawyers for Halloween. Like that. Like there's a very famous firm in New York. There's an off-Broadway show about it. Now it was because some of the battles, but that's who you want to be.
Wait, so who was dressing up? So just people in New York were dressing up as the lawyers?
There's a firm that was an old firm. They broke up, Celino and Barnes. People would dress up as Celino and Barnes, and like there's an off-Broadway show about them. And there's another lawyer.
Talk about the best free marketing thing ever.
There's a guy in Alabama, Alexander Shannara, who's the billboard guy. He's got 5,000-10,000 people go around at Halloween with a billboard that they're him on a billboard. How great is that? They be known, because there are people that are going to be fooled by the shiny object. It's okay. Then there's going to be people who go, no, I want the guy that I know has been Philly for 30 years and this is his world and he cares about Philly and he cares about me. So I think both are going to happen. You can't stop money. You can't stop progress. You can't, people fought it. The taxi industry fought Uber. Like progress is going to happen. I'm not sure if this is progress, but things are going to move. And there's an opportunity to still do both. And I think that the lawyers who hyper focus on their communities, and that could be Philly, could be Pennsylvania, will still do really well.
Another thing I think most people don't understand, which I know doing what you do, is that there are law firms. They're law firms technically, but they're essentially advertising firms. They don't work cases up. They don't litigate. They don't go to trial. They literally take your phone call and then they take your intake and then they take your case and they hand it off to another lawyer like me. Doesn't have to be me, but like me, that's actually going to try the case and actually has results and actually goes to court. And then they get a referral fee simply for taking your call and passing it along. Now, that's all been ethically blessed in most states where it happens. So I'm not saying it to say that it's unethical or wrong. I'm just saying that it's happening. And I'm just saying that people should know, but I think that people don't know that. And it just goes to the point of, I think that when you're the consumer, you're the client, you can't ask too many questions. I mean, when you're making a decision, like who's going to represent you, you can't ask too many questions about who that is and what's the affiliation. And
right. Are you my lawyer or are you the phone answerer? Who am I getting? And there are firms that are, pre-lit firms and there's lit firms. And, there's a time and a place for both, but it's because of technology, it's even getting more diluted that the lawyers, like you said, the lawyer answers a call, does an intake, and passes it to another lawyer. Not necessarily. Sometimes it's an intake center that does the intake for lawyer A that passes it to lawyer B. Lawyer A technically didn't even necessarily, yes, they might check on the case. And then one step further, AI is actually writing a demand letter. Now, it's probably reviewed, but we're moving into this technological space that good in some areas because it allows maybe a lawyer that doesn't know as much as this lawyer to get the right information. But I want a Tom Bosworth on the file saying, wait a minute. Yes, I know this, but, and I had this conversation with my father that AI and tech doesn't have judgment right now, doesn't have real world experience of two identical cases, identical cars, identical insurance companies, identical injuries. They're still not identical. It's a different family. It's a different road. It's a different something. And a human being, a lawyer with judgment and history can suss that out. Tech really can't now.
You're 1,000,000%. Like you, I feel really strongly about this, if you can't tell. But look, there are decisions I make every day for my clients. It's not arithmetic. They're human beings. Every person, each person's pain, their history, their family, their background, their ethnicity, their religion, whatever. Everybody has a unique makeup, and their case has a further unique tapestry that you're responsible as the lawyer. I think being a lawyer, there's an art form. I don't think that's dramatic to say that. I think it is an art form. And I think that you are an artist in the sense of you're dealing with certain ingredients or things and you're putting something together. AI is never going to be able to do that in a way that a human lawyer that's effective can. No way.
And here's the fact: it's not us just saying it. Like for a fact, a friend of mine in Florida, he's another attorney, so I don't want to say his name on your podcast, but posted that he just got $155,000 for a slip and fall case for a client that another firm turned down. So one lawyer said, "There's no case here. It's not for me."
Exactly.
This person wanted help and went to him. He took the case and said, "No, there's something here, and you were injured." And $155,000 later, which means this, but another lawyer said, so I know for a fact this is real. Or I've had stories where, true stories, again, I won't say the firm, they refer the case out and say, yeah, it's a crappy case, whatever, just get policy limits, 30 grand, like just do it. And then the person gets $400,000 because their eye caught something else. Their judgment, their history, their knowledge said, wait a minute, did you know, like, this happened, and wait a minute, there's another piece here. And so we know that to be true. Now, will technology catch up to that in 5 or 10 years or 20 years? Maybe, we don't know. But for now, it's critical that you have someone that actually loves the law, cares about the law, and thinks through it. It's not maybe the first question you should ask a lawyer when you call them is, give me the address of the courthouse, because some of them might not know.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, well, no, because as a trial lawyer, I mean, I'm trying a case in 2 weeks and then back to back, and I feel deeply about it. I do. Because I don't know that people know, like, oh, has this lawyer ever tried a case? There's many, many, many lawyers. I see it now in my space where there's literal trial lawyers associations, and there are people on the boards and in leadership committees in Philly who haven't tried a case to verdict, to conclusion. They're on the board of the Trial Lawyers Association. And I mean, think about it. It's like going to the Auto Body Mechanics Association conference in Las Vegas and the vice president's never fixed a car.
Look, there's a place for the pre-lit model. Like, not every case should be going to trial. We can't, it wouldn't work if every case went to trial. The courts it would take 25 years to get, judgments. We can't take everything shouldn't go to trial. So there's a time and a place for negotiation and settlement. But I know for a fact that I have friends of mine that if they went to any law firm and you said, here's my pre-lit files, they can go through there and say, no, there's chicken on this bone. No, this shouldn't. That there are ones that should be going to trial, and we should use the tools of getting some money for a client to get them over the hurdle so they can wait. Whether obviously if they can get it from family and friends or whatever. I'm working. One of the companies I consult for is changing the game in pre-settlement funding, making it different so we can, help with the weight of the weight, because there are ones that should go to trial because there's more stuff here. And I can tell you that for every pre-lit firm out there, if you got the right trial, went in there and said, come in once a month and rip through my files, you will find significant chicken on the bone that you're leaving on the table for the client and therefore for you too, because you're missing opportunity.
I was just going to ask you, like, because I know you consult in
Yep.
the legal space. What are some things, if any, that you commonly run into when you're consulting lawyers or law firms, or are there like patterns that you see in terms of ways that lawyers look at marketing or the ways they look at advertising that's unhelpful, or, because trust me, they don't teach this stuff in law school. So
There's a lot of things that happen. One is trying to copy the big guys in your market, and you don't have their dollars, so they will bleed you dry if you just, they're on TV, I gotta go on TV. If you can't afford it, don't do it. Find it. That's number one. Number two, be very careful if you go to conferences, just assuming everybody on the stage is the greatest expert. Sometimes it's a pay to play model, and guys who might might pay to get a speaking slot, vet the vendors out by who have they worked with, how long have they been doing it. Like, don't just sign up with the first guy that calls you. Like, what are the firms you work with? What is the track record? Especially now more so than ever, because I've been doing this almost 20 years and I've been at 300-400 conferences. Now with tech coming in, there's 50-60% of the vendors are now new because of these young, smart tech associated that are coming in with AI tools that are making the practice easier. But let's make sure that they're going to be around, and that when you make this commitment, they're going to be there to service you. So lawyers, just, what's that expression? Slow down, you'll go faster. I've seen lawyers throw money left, right, and center and without thinking. Or I've seen this one. This is my favorite. Lawyer goes to a conference, and us marketers, we're a really good sales guy, and they go to this booth and they hire the guy for SEO. Then they go down the aisle and they hire, LeDuc to do the podcast. Then they go over there and some guy does newsletters and they hire him. And they hire 4 different people that are all in marketing, but those 4 people don't know about each other. They're not talking. It's not a cohesive message, but 4 different sales guys convinced a lawyer that they're the best. And so they hired everybody. And now they're doing a PR piece about how I'm the local lawyer. The SEO is saying we're national. The podcast says, let's make sure that the pieces are connected. And then the critical, most critical of all of it when it comes to marketing is marketing means nothing and will fail if you don't have intake and process in place. I could give you the best phone number. They can make this podcast episode go to 50 million people in America. If the phones start ringing, the leads come in, and your intake process is broken, you're losing, and you've just wasted all those marketing dollars. My martial arts instructor says, if a tree with strong roots doesn't fear the storm, get those strong roots, get your intake process in, get your CRM before you just get not suckered, before you commit to marketing dollars. Make sure you have a plan in place to capture. That's another thing. I can go to almost any firm. There are firms that are very well coached, and you will see that they are losing stuff out the bottom. I could say to a firm, you don't need one more phone call. If you're getting 30 phone calls a day or a month, you don't need any more, and you can grow your firm, because there's stuff falling out the bottom because your intake is broken. Yeah. Your process somewhere. So that is mission critical for lawyers. Slow down, you'll go faster. Pour the foundation, which is your intake, your CRM, your processes, then put up the sheetrock walls, then buy the artwork, then go decorate the house with good marketing. So I think that's critical. Every lawyer needs to hear that.
Paul, thank you so much. I got to wrap it up here. You are the man. And just to kind of end here, can you just tell our listeners where they can find you, whether they're a lawyer, law firm, or someone that wants to kind of seek out your input on stuff?
Yeah, right now I'm at 168th in Lexington in New York City. room 1001. No. Here's what it is. Find me any way you want. The website is ringboost.com. You can email me, Paul at ringboost.com. You can call me at 914-200-0013. 13 is my lucky number. You can find me on Instagram at @CoolGuyPaulFaust. I'm not egotistical. That was my character on The Office. Or you could just ask people in the industry how to find me. And I will tell you this. I've said this with my hand over my heart. You're a lawyer. Sign a contract, write a contract. You will never do business with me. I'll sign it. Call me if you want to talk, if you want to bounce ideas, if you want help. I love this stuff. I believe in an abundance mentality. Like, I don't believe in what goes around comes around. I believe in what goes around has to go somewhere. So I'm happy to talk to anybody. I'm not going to try and sell you marketing. Like, I'll tell you some of the things I do if you want to know, but reach out to me any way you want. I love this conversation and I love this industry. And we have to keep it going the right way.
Thanks, Paul. And that's a wrap for this episode of City of Brotherly Law. I'm Tom Bosworth, reminding you that in Philly, we don't just practice law, we live it, we breathe it, we fight for it every day. This city was built on grit and determination. That's exactly how we approach justice. That's how we approach cases. Join us next time for more straight talk and legal insights from the heart of Philadelphia. Until then, stay tough and keep it real, Philly.